All right. This is back here. This is Gavin Mail. And today we are back on with Brett Banafee for the fourth time, all things Bitcoin, and pose my question. I did a short video on yesterday about how I want to really find out what is going on with the Bitcoin space, and who better to ask than Brett Banafee, because Brett, we've done a three interviews before in the past. It's gonna be the fourth, and now he's got a great story. If you go back to the first interview about when he first was a kid, you were first a kid, and you were, the guy who was going on TV, who was not talking for a year, and you went on TV, and and then you learned how to dance and break dancing, and I'm wondering, so I'm just wondering, and then all the stuff about getting into Bitcoin and the whole space. So man, it's good to see you again, Brett. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Gavin. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it really is. And we had a great time in San Francisco in person when you came to the hackathon, and that was a real high. We were just talking about how amazing the event was, but also you miss almost missing your flight and staying all the way to the very end, and just the camaraderie there was just unprecedented, even all the way to the very end, to like midnight. At that last night, like it was just great to have that bond, and I hope to do it again soon. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, bonded with so many people there. The journey for me with Bitcoin hasn't just been one about the technology, but we do want to get into that eventually, and we'll spend the majority of this session talking about that. But for me, it's more than that. It's beyond that. It's the small world network, that those concepts. Well, what is a small world network? A small world network, my dad, he came up in an industry of electronic communications, data across an electronic communications channel, which is exactly what Bitcoin is, except, the technology that was at the epicenter and the leading that was, fax machines and all of that stuff, copy machines, things like that, inter office communications. And now we just have the ability to, instead of sending, what started off as the technology that allowed for sending a single page, with a fax machine, that then to sending digital pages with emails, and now to sending, literally cash peer to peer. So it's just the same evolution. It's still data across a communication channel. But what's interesting about, like, I learned a lot from my father through his business journey, because I was sitting at the kitchen table with him, and he would download his thoughts, so that I could, participate with him in terms of how he's approaching the market and things like this. And the concept of a small world network, he used to explain to me as, like, when you first are introducing the concept of a fax machine, there's no one to fax to if you're the only fax machine. So its value depends on there being other people in the network. And that concept is the small world network, the ability to have multiple people participating in a single ecosystem for that data communication. And that's one of the challenges that Bitcoin has faced in the, inception. Even though it's 15 years, we think back to the internet that really came about in the 50s as a technology, but really didn't become popularized as a commercial technology until much afterwards, far beyond the 80s into the early 90s and the late 90s, before, the real commercial applicability of something as what we would think as so simple as the use case of the internet now, really needed 40 years before it became apparent to people. So we're seeing the same thing with the development of intercommunications across, a blockchain network, and it's taking time for people to understand exactly what the value propositions are, what are the business use cases. There's a barrier to entry in terms of the, this is new technology. So you have to educate people about how to build on this technology. And those are the hurdles that, you have to cross in those first 15 years. Something that I think we've made a lot of progress on. And now what we're seeing is, the explosion of use cases and applicability. And that's when you get to actually measure these concepts, not just by, the ability to use smoke and mirrors to, like a lot of, unfortunately, participants within this space are doing to say, hey, selling you a bridge to or the Brooklyn Bridge, like, in 10, 15 years, we're going to have all of this great, adoption and technology and stuff, when in reality, that isn't actually what's happening. You're actually seeing these chains now compete for their utility. And that's where I think, anyone that is really looking at the technology at the fundamental layer, they're seeing that there's really only one solution that has been proposed that has a chance to succeed, and that's BSV.
BSV is the only one that has a chance to succeed. I mean, that's a pretty bold statement, and it sounds like a lot of other blockers, the small blockers, which is the bulk of the market. With the market share being BTC being the small blockers, they're going to disagree with that. They're going to say, counter that, say, well, BTC is the biggest market share. Ethereum is the second biggest market share. These are the ones that the market likes and the people like. So they're in their opinion, they're going to say, well, BSV is down at the bottom and nobody knows about it. And the ones who do know about it, well, they're affiliated with Dr. Wright, and he hasn't done so well in court. So I mean,
And
that's just
it's
the other side of the spectrum. So how do we? Yeah, I mean, how do we address these things? What is really going on with this? And I mean, how do you solve a problem like this? I mean, I don't just how, yeah, how can you say that BSV is the only one? I guess is the better question. And I mean, and how is that possible, Brett? The BSV
yeah.
is the one that, yeah, please.
Yeah, and it's really, great points, and it's important that we have, we address the counter narratives, and try to steelman them, and try to say, why would they be correct in their doubt. And one area where I don't think they have a really good argument is, the opinion of the inventor, so, like, yeah, my opinion of the inventor of the light bulb, Thomas Edison, it has no bearing on whether or not I'm able to have light in my household right now. I might think that he is the worst guy in the world, and at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with the applicability and the utility of electricity, and it being a driver for the innovation for an entire century of development across the globe. Well, the exact same thing is true for the inventor of blockchain technology and Bitcoin, and the opinions of that person, that individual. Some people really like Satoshi Nakamoto. Some people have a difference of opinion about this or that or the other with Satoshi. In fact, we look back at the history of the introduction of Bitcoin, and we see that, when Satoshi announced how Bitcoin was going to revolutionize the world, the very first person that responded to him was a person that critiqued the idea and explained all of the reasons why it wouldn't work. And one thing that's important to understand is that these were not new ideas. So when we think of the concept of digital cash, this is something that is in the, forefront of a lot of people's imaginations and minds because of Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is not the first effort at solving these things. And the previous versions, they all had fatal flaws. So some of those fatal flaws, had to do with the network architecture. Some of the fatal flaws had to do with the fact that it relied on a trusted third party. And these were systems that Satoshi Nakamoto was keenly aware of. That the introduction and the inception of blockchain itself, which I think you could argue goes back to Scott Stornetta and Stuart Haber. There's a great video online for those that aren't familiar with that one. It's produced by Coingeek, so you can go and check out Scott Stornetta and Stuart Haber, who explain the original concept for blockchain, which dates back to a 1991 paper called "How to Timestamp a Digital Document." This is a service that they continue to provide. They've provided it since the company that they founded's inception back in the early 90s. And of course, Satoshi Nakamoto was keenly aware of these innovations. And,
I'll see if I can find that and put a link to it here in the card. So continue.
Yeah, and not to take a step back and look at this from a bird's eye view, but one of the unique parts about Bitcoin was, and this I think is speaks to its real innovation, is that the tools that enabled Bitcoin to exist existed for, in some cases, decades. And it wasn't that that there was some unique innovation that took place in 2008 or that enabled this new technology to emerge, but what it was the confluence of or a congruency of different aspects of the system that had never been combined in this unique way. And that was the innovation that Satoshi Nakamoto gave us. So, there's something to be said for the fact that the innovation is not in its novelty, but it's in its unique configuration. And one of the things that when we look at Bitcoin, we see is that, some of the problems, like, for example, how do we distribute uh, tokens in a fair and even way that doesn't rely on a central party to be the issuer and the distributor of those tokens, because if it were to use or rely on this central party, then of course that central party becomes the attack vector for the entire network. And we see that with the existing systems that Bitcoin is here to displace, right? We see that we have unique technology, we have the ability to send payments electronically, et cetera, but those are enabled by this reliance on this central trusted third party, and those become natural attack vectors. It's things that we see all the time, as we're seeing, examples of insider trading and all of the examples of times when people who are in positions of power are able to leverage that power to provide benefits to themselves personally, often at the expense of others. So the unique value proposition that Bitcoin is demonstrating is how to achieve the same functionality, and in this case of BSV, not just the same or identical functionality, but improved functionality, because the legacy systems and structures they top out, or they bottom out, I should say, at 25 cents or 30 cents per transaction. It's just too expensive to process these transactions to actually make it worthwhile to process anything less than that. That's why we see, when we walk into a gas station, $5 minimums signs on the counter, because it's not worth it for them to process the transaction for the single can of Red Bull that I want to enjoy. They need me to get the double. So it's not just an equaling of the technology, but it's an improvement of that technology. And that the way to do that was laid out for us in the original issuance of the Bitcoin white paper. What BSV is doing, and what's innovative about this, is that we're not reinventing the wheel. We don't think that we're, no offense to anyone out there that may think this, but we don't think that we're smarter than Satoshi Nakamoto when it comes to the development and the design of Bitcoin, especially when it comes to implementation at scale. And so that's why you're seeing, the main focus and progress and development that's being addressed by the, BSV Association and related bodies of standardization and things like this, as being really focused on implementing the original vision of Bitcoin, what you would describe as Bitcoin Satoshi vision, and that's where the acronym BSV comes from. But at the end of the day, we're not here to resuscitate or prove the correctness or validity of any single person's reputation or any single statement of truth. What we're here to do is to build a technology that is primed and ripe to change the entire world as we know it, by building a data integrity solution and auditability, data security, data integrity solution that operates at extreme high throughput and volumes, over millions of transactions per second, reliably, securely, for fractions of a cent. And just like the original design of the internet, there's just going to take some time for the commercial applicability of that to work itself out, as there's a natural barrier to educate people on what this technology actually represents. On the, I saw a article the other day that mentioned something I thought was very interesting. For if we just think back, it's hard to think back when we have such a modern day perspective, but we think back, refrigeration itself as a concept, that was an innovation that changed the world as we know it. But we're the people who profited off the invention and the innovation of refrigeration, necessarily the developers and the designers of the refrigerator. You could argue, yeah, they probably had some benefit to the emergence of the refrigeration as an emergent technology, but it was the businesses that were able to take advantage of that new technology, like for example, Coca-Cola, that could say, okay, now we can actually sell these drinks and have them be cold when someone comes to, to the store. We don't need to be loading, we don't need trucks full of ice anymore. Those were the people that actually benefited and uh commercialized the technology of the refrigeration, much more so than the actual developers and the designers of the refrigerator models themselves. So, what we're seeing now with the emergence of blockchain technology, we're in this waiting period where, okay, the technology to provide this data integrity solution exists out there, but it's just going to take a little bit of time until the Coca-Colas of tomorrow that are using this technology to provide a new form of goods or services to a consumer, that for them to emerge and for them to take full advantage. And that's why BSV will be successful, because it engenders and enables entrepreneurial mindsets and focuses to have a faster time to market with their product and their service.
All right, so Brett, this is going to be a tough question, so brace yourself. Who gave the BSV Association the authority to exist?
I believe that they are a nonprofit based out of Switzerland, and they uh, were formed sometime, they originally were an organization in 2015 that had a different name. I think Kurt Wookert was talking about this on a previous podcast. But just like all organizations, they self-formed, and they have a system for managing their objectives, their directives, and things like this, which is self-formed.
Okay, so it wasn't Satoshi Nakamoto or Dr. Wright,
Yeah, I mean, they
or what? Or was it?
as far as I know, they trace their history back to a organization, a nonprofit based out of Switzerland,
Okay,
with
all
the
right.
express goals and purpose of ensuring education when it comes
Which is,
to the content
yeah.
that we're talking about.
I just wanted to clear the air on that and find out, because if Craig doesn't win on the appeal on the case, then I don't know. I haven't traced this back, but just a concern is that if it was Craig that authorized them to exist, and if he doesn't win on appeal, it's not settled law yet. And I'll be honest, it is absolutely unsettled right now, not even close. So that has to go through full settlement, either appeal or not appeal, and then it goes through, that before it becomes final. But if it becomes back final and settled, and he's not Satoshi, and he was the one that potentially commissioned them to exist. I don't know if that is true or not. Maybe he didn't commission them. It was just a formulation of an association, and it was members. So just something that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a membership organization, and it is the purpose and intent of the organization is to steward and to build a bridge to this vision of a blockchain enabled world, and while setting extremely high standards for how that world is interfacing, and ensuring the integrity of the data solutions that this technology enables. And it's something where I think it's better to look at from a high level when we look at the value that the organization represents for the world at large. Because there, if we just take an example, let's just paint a doomsday scenario or some horrible scenario, okay? not that long ago, and I'm not the Bitcoin historian, but I try to my best to educate myself as well as I can, and if I'm missing any information, I invite people to reach out to me on that. There was a exploit called the overflow value bug, as far as I'm concerned, which required. This was back when Satoshi was involved directly with the stewardship of the project, and uh the overflow value bug caused the typical 21 million coins to be, corrupted essentially because there was a bug in the output. Someone had exploited it maybe. I'm not 100% sure how this bug was discovered, etc. But needless to say that there were billions of coins that were put into existence through this overflow value bug, and it required a rollback of the chain. Okay, so if we imagine, for the sake of discussion, that we are just leaving the code to be like like you get into a car, that one of these self-driving cars, and the car just starts driving you wherever you want to go. But if we just imagine that, we have no ability to get in and override the controls of the car. Let's say that it just gets this wild hair in its butt and it wants to lock the doors and start driving us out into the middle of the desert or something like this, right? This is something where, this represents an attack vector. To have Bitcoin as a system be fully, hands off, the worry is that we run into situations where the code could somehow be corrupted unintentionally, and that corruption could create a wild divergence between the intention of the system, which is, construed through, some of the documentation, through some of the README files, through some of the white paper document, et cetera, through some of even the early articulations by Satoshi on forums, et cetera. We can construe the intention of the system as to remain at 21 million coin. And so we can say that it would be beneficial to the project at large for there to be someone whose hands are on the controls. Now, that doesn't mean that they need to be making judgments about whether or not these coins should go here or these coins should go there, right? You let the system operate on its own, and that's one of the value adds that Bitcoin brings. But at the same time, in an emergency situation, there are human hands at the control panel, and they can revert changes that deviate from the expected direction that the network is supposed to go, such as, for example, to remain at 21 million coins. So that's valuable. It's valuable to have humans' hands at the controls. But what's not valuable is when those human hands don't have specific, limitations as far as the way in which they can manipulate that code, because by virtue of the fact of being able to manipulate the code, let's just say, for the sake of discussion, that I decide that, I have my hands on the control panel. I'm only supposed to use it in emergency circumstances. Of course, this has parallels to like the emergency circumstances that the government sometimes uses, which sometimes don't tend to be emergency circumstances after all, but they get used to necessitate this taking of power, right? And it's only after the dust settles and the government says, okay, well, I've taken the power briefly, just because this was an emergency. But you know what? Like, I decided I don't really want to give it back right now because it's in your best interest if I maintain it, right? Like, we're used to these narratives, and of course, left unsupervised, these narratives will naturally take place. So it's important that there be boundaries to the person. That, number one, we have to have someone whose hands are on the control panel just in case something goes completely wrong. But the hands on the control panel need to have specific limitations as far as the way in which they can guide and steer the project. What we're seeing is that the main value proposition of Bitcoin is that it removes this concept of validated by a network of popular opinion, right? So, let's just say that I send you some Bitcoins, right? And then, I have a really great relationship with all the other nodes on the network. And then you say, okay, I want to go try and spend my network. And I say, hey guys, just to let everyone know, I never sent those funds to Gavin, and now I have a popular opinion. I mean, I'm popular on the network, so I can convince other people that my way is the right way. And so what Bitcoin replaces that system with, that's the common system of Sybil attacking, that is, really dominant to be able to get your way, in human history. And what we replace that system with is a system of proof of work. So you say, okay, you're saying that you didn't give the money to Gavin. Gavin's saying he did give the money to that he did get the money from you. So why don't you guys both do a little bit of work, and we'll see, who's let your work speak for yourself. And what you find is that when people have to put some, they say put up or shut up, right? When you have to put up, oftentimes that's a little bit too much work. You're willing to shut up, right? So this is the way that Bitcoin solves the problem of how do we know who to trust on the network? We trust that person via proof of work. But that being said, the value of proof of work is only that we will review your claim. It doesn't necessitate that your claim is correct. For example, I can do a ton of proof of work and say that the sky is orange, or say that the sun is black, or something like this, and that doesn't mean that I'm correct just because I've assigned proof of work to my statements, right? So it's a tool to get people to evaluate my truth claim, but it doesn't necessitate the truth claim. So the how this relates to the Bitcoin network is, when I make a change to the network that is unauthorized with my hands on the control panel, and I say, you know what, guys, I know everybody thinks that 21 million is a great idea, but I decided 100 million is much better idea. It's a round number. Trust us, 4 more years, we're gonna have such a great Bitcoin. It's gonna be the best Bitcoin. 100 million Bitcoin is the way it's supposed to be. Say, okay, well, do some proof of work. Okay, I done the proof of work. And then now we say, okay, we'll evaluate your claim. Okay, your claim says 100 million Bitcoin. Okay, that's interesting. That's different than other people. Yeah, and so for the reason that you are deviating from what you're allowed to do, we are just going to reject what you're saying outright. And so this is the process of, distributed consensus, because that's the value add that we're doing. We're creating distributed consensus across communications lines, but that distributed consensus still has to meet this very basic, strict criteria of, yes, it has to, you have to output you have to have more inputs than you have outputs, or at least as many inputs as you have outputs, right? There's specific things that, like, you can't just say, okay, I also send 100 million Bitcoin to myself, right? Because even if you attach proof of work to that, it deviates from the basic system that are the operating rules, essentially the protocol rules for the network to operate. And for that reason, even if you attach proof of work to it, even if you're a very popular guy and I can convince all these people, but seriously, my idea is so much better than everyone else's. I'm really intelligent. Trust me. There's just no way to change those fundamentals about the network. And so that's the value of having a network, or a association like the BSV Association, who operates as the hands on the controls and says, okay, we are assuming this responsibility. We have the responsibility to ensure that the integrity of the network remains true to the original vision of the implementation of the project, as spelled out in the Bitcoin white paper. While at the same, and we can revert changes which are harmful to the network, while at the same time, we ourselves, as the hands on the network, or as the hands on the control panel, we are bound to ensure that, that the original protocol is followed and maintained. And I think that people have a fundamental hard time with this concept because, of course, this concept almost in introduces this idea of a trusted third party network, right? Because now it's almost giving the impression that the association is now has a central role to play in the network's faithfulness, and that is in a way true, but it is only a central role insofar as it continues to maintain the faithfulness as originally spelled out, right? It's not it is restricted from the ability to deviate from that original vision, and while maybe it's not the most perfect solution, and maybe it doesn't solve the wet dreams of a number of people who think that you know like vigilante justice and might makes right and stuff are really great solutions. We never should have deviated from those to begin with, while and because it does introduce this concept of now we have to potentially include things like the court system. Now we have to potentially include, concepts like, should, do these Bitcoins actually belong to this person? And a court weighing in on that may get the opinion wrong. And if they get it wrong, that's an injustice on the person whose rightful ownership of those bitcoins now become violated, and that's true. The problem though, or the counterpoint to that, is that we always live in an imperfect world that isn't, we don't have any pure freedom, and we have to make these conscious concessions at points where it makes the most sense to do so while not deviating from our integrity. And if someone out there has a better solution, fully invite them to propose it or to review it. I know a few people have done so, and I think that it's worth making sure that people understand that this is that this is an open conversation, because the only thing that we demand is faithfulness to the original Bitcoin protocol, right? If you can produce a system that is even more integral, even more secure, even more faithful to that system, then of course we're open to that.
Hmm. All right. That's sounds like the original pro, basically that we talked all about the loyalty to the original network and the kind of the centralization argument on the other that the other side brings forward potentially about the Bitcoin Association. And now I wanted to go ahead and switch over to a few other subjects. One is sCrypt had this hackathon, and then after the hackathon, they continued on and they raised a prize money bounty for hackers and people to enter in on developing apps. And it's very, very, very high tech. I tried to sit in on some of the discussions with some of the developers, and it just flies right past me. So can you bring back down to basics on maybe like on some of more about the ideas or the potential apps that these things maybe are coming out that could benefit your everyday person, not necessarily how it works and development stuff, but how some, like, maybe if there's any examples of some of the, ideas, if you've been following, have you been the
Yeah,
apps, because
yeah.
I know there's some people that are going to vote. Are you one of the judges?
I
Oh, you
am
are.
I am indeed a judge for this
Okay.
upcoming hackathon. So
All right. So
yeah.
when is it happening? When is the vote, the vote happening?
Yeah, so the conclusion of the hackathon is, I believe, Friday, May 3rd. So get your submissions in if you haven't, joined the hackathon. The address for that will be in the comments below, but it is script.devfolio.co. And yeah, you can just join as a single hacker or as a team. I think all joined hackers have to have a team name. So even if you are just joining as an individual, you will still need to make a team name, but your team name can just be regular name. That's okay. And yeah, you will have the opportunity to submit your project. The project is being reviewed by Xiaowei Liu, who is the CEO and co-founder of sCrypt. sCrypt is the primary, along with the BSV blockchain, the primary sponsors for this hackathon. And it's really about demonstrating use cases. Having spoken with Xiaowei out in San Francisco, I can't, of course, speak for him, but I can say that my general sense from what he was trying to do with his hackathon is, uh, with the focus for this blockchain on scalability, a lot of times, the utility and the use case of scalability um, connotes and implies like a real focus and targeted attention towards enterprise adoption. Customers like, say, Microsoft Azure and, Amazon Web Services and, large cloud providers who, another really big use cases is large language models where data is being pulled for example, to prepare things like legal opinions, or not opinions, but legal statements and things like this. They can help law firms, not necessarily with the presenting of their case in a courtroom, but maybe with the drafting of documents related to that and things like this. But how do we be certain that the information that these major companies, these large firms are drawing on in order to compose and comprise their AI-enabled solutions? How do we know that that data is useful? What if that data that these legal firms are using to help them compose their legal arguments or something like this, what if it's being drawn from normal data that's being scraped off of the general internet, right? Which, that would be potentially a problem, right? Because I don't have a law degree, so my opinion on whether this is lawful or that is lawful, it shouldn't be included in the large language models and analysis. It should only be taking information from historical case studies, or from law books and things that have been vetted and can be confirmed as having accurate information by people who are paid and who have the degrees to know the difference between that. And so that's a data integrity problem. Those are just some of the solutions that enterprise clients could be looking for, and it's important for BSV blockchain and for entrepreneurs on this ecosystem to be looking at that, because of course those are the golden rings, so to speak. We would be they would be some of our best customers if we were an entrepreneur and providing a service to a company like Microsoft, just because of the a massive amount of volume of the data that they actually process. But that being said, we can't ignore the everyday businesses that have an opportunity to take this same technology and to innovate instead of taking, this is an example that I use a lot, which is the example of the concept of horsepower. When we think of vehicles, we think of, oh, what's the horsepower of your truck? It's just sometimes we forget that the analogy to horsepower is because the truck or the vehicle, the car, was so innovative at the time that there was nothing to compare it to. So you had to go in to say, okay, well, it does about the equivalent of 10 horses. It has 10 horsepower, right? So you have to take this old model and try to apply, what can the new model do? Now, of course, the internal combustion engine on which the vehicle depended, and and the use case and the applicability of this technology, it far exceeds anything that you can do with a horse, right? I mean, to the idea that you would compare these two technologies, the horse and the car, now is laughable, because there's no comparison. Nobody turns 18 and says, "What should I do? Get a car or a horse?" I'm really on the fence on that one. So but nevertheless, when it's an emergent technology, often the only thing you can do is compare it to the technology that you're replacing, right? And so this is something where, what with the sCrypt hackathon, it's more geared and aimed towards the innovative developers who maybe they're not Microsoft, right? They don't come to work in a suit and a tie. They come to work in their shorts, and their gumption, their grit, their tenacity, their determination, all of the things that make entrepreneurs great, their ability to remain consistent with their project, their vision, and their innovation, even in the face of doubters and things like this. So, we see this use case get explained sometimes, but the Amazon at one point was just another .com stock, right? And but they had a slightly different approach to some of these other .com stocks where they really focused on, okay, first of all, let's get our foot in the door by selling books. Second of all, let's really emphasize and prioritize customer service, because once we have a customer, we want to make sure we keep that customer. It's so expensive in today's day and age to get the customer. You need to be able to keep it, and that oftentimes means having to put your own interest and your value to the side for a second. As a young company, of course, you're looking to get as much money as possible because you're needing to keep the lights on. This is so valuable. And when a customer is complaining about something, maybe they ordered the wrong thing, but they want you to take it back and give them a full refund, but it was their fault. Oftentimes you're in this difficult situation where you're having to say, I'm a small business. I can't just afford to give everybody their money back that orders the wrong thing. But with the long-term vision, which is what Amazon had, it makes sense. It pays in the end to give the customer full satisfaction, even if it means coming out of your own pocket at the start. And so these are the things that blockchain enables and makes possible in a brand new way. We think that innovative developers have an opportunity and a voice in that conversation, and it's a two-way or it's a two-pronged approach. We're going to be focusing on enterprise customers, and we want to appeal to them, and we want to do massive amounts of data on chain and solve these big large language model problems. We want to do all that, but we also want to give tools to everyday ordinary developers, because guess what? The new things that became innovative out of the emergence of the internet, they didn't come from established brands. They came from young guys, like the founders of Google. They came from young people who started business out of their garage, and just, you're coming out of San Francisco, so you're well aware of the immense entrepreneurial spirit that rode the last tech wave into global domination. And so we see that same opportunity being possible right now in BSV. And we encourage you, if you're a developer, even if you're a Web 2 developer that has no background in Web 3, one of the unique capabilities of sCrypt is that it can take ordinary TypeScript, which is known across 30 million different developers. It's the most prominent coding language in the world, globally, universally recognized number one, and it can allow you to perform Web3 smart contract functions. It can rely on the interaction with the blockchain, and it can compile down to Bitcoin code, and that is at the genius of Xiaowei Liu, someone who we all owe an immense debt of gratitude, and someone whose vision I'm really proud to say I align with and want to see succeed.
So, no, so you mentioned here what sCrypt can do with the smart contracts and these innovative ideas in these companies. So, I mean, are you, as the judge, are you allowed to talk about some of these apps that might be cool? I mean, and we had the runes thing going on here recently on the Bitcoin Core chain, which a lot of people were excited about, which is a cartoon meme coin on the chain, and then people like it and they think it's cool, and it's a picture and they buy it. Unfortunately, it's very expensive, but super expensive. But I mean, what's some of the cool ideas? Have you heard any that you can talk about that might be
Yeah, I
breakthrough?
can. I'm not gonna to go through any of the ones that, because the submission period is not over. So we do have all,
Okay,
it's able to be continually updated. Even if you've already submitted, you can update your submission all the way up until
all right.
the
So you're not allowed to reveal the stuff that you know yet, basically.
correct, correct. But
Okay, fair enough.
I can give a really simple use case that I'd love to see someone build out there, which is just, we're here in April. We just had the NFL draft. I'm a big football fan. And every year we see, like one of the largest industries in the world is the fantasy football industry that picks up just along with the season as it progresses. And just a blockchain based fantasy football app that allows for, just in the same way that, like you were saying, you can buy these runes, or you can buy these pictures, these JPEGs, etc. Why not just incorporate that same exact strategy to a fantasy football draft where you have X amount of dollars to spend? You can decide, do you want to spend it on Patrick Mahomes? Do you want to spend it on, Travis Kelce? And how are you going to build your team? And then, you join with your friends. So everybody kicks in $10, something like that. You all have $10 to buy your team from. Every different player has a different cost. There's lots of different ways that you can do it, but I'd really love to see that because, it's data integrity, it's instantaneous payments, all of that stuff that I think, Bitcoin is uniquely able to do.
All right, so that's cool, man. Sounds like the NFL draft could be an idea that somebody could really bring forward. I know they had a one called Lil Bit, which is a casino, online casino on Bitcoin SV. Are you familiar with that one? Have you heard of it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, they have a legal gaming license. So they are an example, they are enterprise adoption, because, that's a legal casino that is right now running, sports betting on chain. But what the reason why it's called Little Bit is because, yes, while you can do, very large bets as well, just like you could do at any sports book, they'll always take your money. Trust me, I know that for a fact. One of the unique things about Little Bit, that no other sports betting application can do is take bets as small as a penny or a couple pennies. So, for people who just like the excitement and the engagement, I personally don't ever bet. I really hate to lose, and it just makes me mad because no matter what I choose, I always lose.
Hmm.
So I don't bet, but there could be some fun in just betting a penny because at the end of the day, you lose a penny, you're not gonna cry, you're not gonna go to sleep sad about that. So that's one of the unique things that can only be possible on Bitcoin, and the applicability of that is it applies to every other facet and component of global commerce, right? It's just going to take time for people to realize that this technology actually exists and is possible today.
Mm-hmm. Sweet, man. So that's all right. So now we're at 45 minutes in, so like another 15 minutes to go. And I just wanted to kind of transition about what is going on with the expansion of the blockchain. I read that BSV Association said that there was a massive amount of transactions that were done or are being done. And can you talk a little bit about where the scaling is at right now and what's happening with the scalability of the chain?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, there is a project being run. There is a intention to launch the Tera node implementation software by the end of the year, getting up to 1 million transactions per second. Something that is uniquely possible because of Bitcoin's design, which allows for the validation of data through Merkle trees and through the peer-to-peer exchange of that information through SPV, which stands for Simple Payment Verification. It is Section 8 of the white paper for those. And I just really want to impress upon people because, I go back sometimes to my own journey into this space, and I was just someone who is watching a show exactly like this one, trying to get my wits about me and not knowing, is the person on the screen full of crap or do they have some value to add? But it took me a little while before I listened to a lot of people's opinion about Bitcoin before I took the time to really fully read the document myself, and I encourage people to do that. Go and look up the white paper, read it a few times because the innovation that's in there is really all that's being discussed on this show. We try to paint it for people in unique ways so that they can see, oh yeah, that would apply to me, or oh, that would be valuable if I could do that. Bet a penny, things like this. We're trying to give it use cases, examples, but at the end of the day, really what we're getting back to is that innovation that's outlined in the white paper, and yeah, so but I apologize, I
We
forgot
were talking about the
the beginning
scaling
of the question.
with now they're doing well. They said that I think the announcement was something like more transactions on the test net than emails were sent in the UK or in last year, something like that. It was anyways, there was a huge amount of transactions, and I'm just
Sure.
wondering what is the yeah
Yeah, yeah.
how's that
So
going?
yeah, thank you for reminding me that yeah, it's about scalability. It's about and scalability, it's not just scalability just because we want to pat ourselves on the back and say, aren't we so smart? We followed the white paper and turns out it was correct. It's scalability because scalability is vital to the security of the network. It's vital to the economic utility of the network. If we just, for sake of discussion, we just allow ourselves to imagine the next 140 years or so, and we just choose this path that we're going to not scale. We want to continue with this, this model that limits and restricts the throughput of the network at the expense of its ability to actually process that data. Eventually you
Just
run out of subsidy. Yeah, that would
just
be
in
the small
context
blocker.
here, like yeah, like in context, I think I heard somebody say the other day, trying to compare the 1 megabyte blockchain to this scalable blockchain, right? Where the 1 megabyte would, how would you compare that to would that be considered like the early days of the internet where it was a dial-up internet, or would that even be
Yeah.
before that possibly, versus something much bigger? I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to kind of compare relativity on how it matters.
You know,
So
it's another that's a great use case is the dial up versus broadband, and really we see that we were saying that it was a failure of industry to recognize and realize the value and utility that the internet represented while it was available since the 1950s. But in a way, that's a little bit of misleading because you bring up a really great example because the internet up until a certain point it really was dial up, right? So you're able to load a web page, but it takes a long time for images on the web page to load. So if you're a brand that's looking to sell your lawnmower, and you want to reach a someone who's has a like not a lot of time on their hands to make a decision about whether which lawnmower to buy, the website wasn't the best place to make that point of as a point of sale, or at least to convey that information, because you would go on the website and then it would take forever for the lawnmower images to load. So how can you pick which one you want to buy if you can't even see the one that it's just easier to get in my car, drive down the street, get to the hardware store and buy a lawnmower, right? But now what we see is it was up until the actual broadband internet, and you talk about Calvin Ayre as being a titan of blockchain, a titan of industry, and broadband. He brought broadband internet, as far as I know, to Canada. Partially, that really was his initial introduction into his forays into business was, so what you see with him time and again is leading the edge of technology and helping not just to, again, we're not doing this scaling where, the people who built broadband internet across the globe, right? They didn't do it to go, hey, aren't we so, look, we can dig all these, all these cables, and, they did it because infrastructure depended on this. Once it was in place, now you can see that these business models like Amazon that were floundering, waiting for the infrastructure to catch up to their vision for actually an online marketplace. Now the infrastructure actually supported these new novel use cases, and of course the businesses that succeeded were the ones who were most ready and willing and able to capitalize on those developments. So that's the Googles, that's the eBays, that's the Amazons, that's the Facebooks, the MySpaces. These all happened like like in the scope of kind of human history. These all happen as literally flashes in a pan. These are all businesses which emerged out of an 8 to 12 to 14-year window of time that is right at the outset when broadband internet actually made global commerce possible in a way that had never been possible before. Well, the exact same thing is primed to happen here in blockchain development. But in order to do that, we have, unfortunately, I want to say BSV has the highest throughput available today, and that's true. Compared to BTC, which is at 7, BSV is at 5,000 sustained transactions per second. And we should be very proud of that because, it took a lot of work to get to that point. But 5,000 transactions per second, I mean, this is like, a drop in the ocean compared to the global economic transfers of data. So, yeah, over the past 11 days with this Tera Node implementation, which is still in testing, planned for release later this year, but we saw that we hit over 1 trillion transactions across 11 days. And yeah, sustained over 1 million transactions per second. And it's the types of things where, we're used to, first of all, within the BSV community, we're used to theorizing about this, right? Because the Bitcoin white paper gave us the tools of how this was actually going to be possible. So we've all thought, okay, we've all thought it, we've imagined it, that this is possible. We're moving out of the realm of imagination into the realm of this is tangible. We're watching this data, we're analyzing the data, we're seeing sticky points where why did this one why did this block get rejected there? Why was that Merkle path not returned, et cetera? And analyzing that. And just like anything, we're iterating, we're using the data to feed back into itself to create a better, more robust system. And that more robust system is a benefit to all of humanity. And once it's launched, I think that we're going to see the exact same revolution that we saw just in the mid 90s, where we saw the emergence of brand new entities that were able to take advantage of the unique potential. And we use this term Web3 right now, like, yeah, just Web3. Like it's like a term that people hear. Yeah, my grandmother, she knows about Web3. Everybody knows about Web3. No, Web3. What if I told you like hundreds of billions of dollars? Like it's just sitting right over there. No one has gotten into it yet. No one has addressed it. Everyone knows that it's coming, right? But it's the real innovators, again, when we look at that example of the Coca-Cola and the refrigerator. You can look at the Bitcoin, BSV blockchain, stuff like this. These are the people who are setting the infrastructure, the broadband infrastructure that's going to enable this commerce. But that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be the ones who actually deliver that value to the end customer. That door is completely wide open to someone that's out there listening to this conversation right now that says, yes, I want to be one of the next titans of industry, one of the next titans of blockchain. And the reason why I want to do that is because I have this idea that's always been in the back of my mind about the way that, we can use data more interchangeably. We can, sell our data back to the consumer from the consumer back to the product engineers. They can get paid in microtransactions. We can use this holistic ecosystem where we're really starting to see the value of the capitalist approach take effect because it's instantaneous. The network effect is so connected that every single action of every other participant in the network is helping to guide the future actions of the rest of the participants in the network. And that includes with areas like tech innovation, like science, like discovery of, new ways to mitigate disease, new approaches to creating healthy living strategies, which is something that you're a really big advocate of. These are all connected because, at the end of the day, this is about a better source for data, but also a better means of verifying that data. And it touches every single aspect of our lives. And I encourage you out there to really consider the ways that you can bring a unique product to market with this technology.
Yeah, it sounds like, this is one of those things that feels like one of these moments sometimes that people are going to look back on these interviews that we did, Brett, in the future and be like, wow, those guys were way ahead of the time at that time because, right now people are talking about blockchain is it's so in its infancy in a way, it's just not even close to being it seems like people don't know. They talk about Web3 you mentioned, but people really aren't doing it yet. But in the future, you know, it just seems like you're going to look back and be like, wow, it really is being evolved onto this big block Bitcoin, And so in the last 3 or 4 minutes here that we have, Brett, I just wanted to, I mean, really, I don't know, where do you see all this going? I mean, okay, no, first of all, before I go to that, we got the event on the 19th of May, right? The block. So I'm going to that, and I'm going to that for sure with Xiaowei and Mike Middleton and some people and friends. I got other people meeting there, so we're gonna have fun. And what can we expect at the Bitcoin event in London? So London blockchain.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those that are out there that are considering joining, we'd love to have you. Reach out to me on socials. My Twitter is manifestable. You can also reach out to me by email, brett.banfee@bsvblockchain.org. Would love to have you. Would love to connect out there in London. We are hosting our own DevCon event. The BSV Association is doing that. So this is, one of the strategies and approaches that the team at the BSV Association is taking. Again, we're not looking to, ourselves be the Coca-Cola. We want to build really great refrigeration, and so in order to do that, from the perspective of blockchain, we need to give our developers tools to be able to interface with that technology, right? And so that's something that we're really committed to doing. So on May 19th, we will be hosting a BSV DevCon Day, and that will, if you want to get invited to that, please reach out to me. We will have a link to sign up for that below, in below this video. And then there will be an after party for that event as well. So that after party is the spring party that's typically hosted by the Block Dojo. For those that don't know the Block Dojo, this is an incubator project really connected closely to the VSV blockchain, so that it's helping to give tools to young entrepreneurs who have these concepts for how to innovate, how to create the next titans of industry that I was describing, to take your business concept and to actually bring it to market, to pitch it in front of real investors, to go through a boot camp 12-week program where you can learn all of the tools that it'll take you to be successful, and to take that all the way to investor pitch day, where a number of projects have been pitched successfully, have been invested, and the investor network is 4,000 deep and strong. A lot of that network is really interested and focused on blockchain, but a lot of that network isn't. They just want a successful business. It doesn't matter to them whether it uses A technology or B technology, as long as it has a real sense for who it's reaching as a customer, and who its customer is, and how it's planning to reach them. That those are the things that are valuable, as well as the passion of the founding team. That's so important, because with enough passion, with enough determination, with enough drive, you will get to where you're going. The important thing is to continually take feedback from others. Don't be defensive. Don't take anything personally. I try and tell people, you have one you're wedded to success, and that's it. You're monogamous with success, but everything else, can change and be replaced, right? Even yourself. And sometimes the most important things that founders do is replace themselves when they're no longer a value add to their own project. So that spring party is on the 19th, and then we kick off the event the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd, I believe. And I'm thinking now if I may have got those days. So it's Monday is the DevCon, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is the event, and then we have like maybe a museum day on Friday. I'm not sure what we're going to be doing, but we'd love to have you. Of course, everyone is welcome. The more the merrier. The event last year was a lot of fun. It was at the QE Queen Elizabeth Center, I believe. This one is at the Excel London Center, so it's massive. It's one of the biggest conference centers in the world, and we're really looking forward to that. The DevCon day, especially, we're going to have presentations among 15, 18 different leading blockchain developers. And if you're interested in this stuff, it's not just I think that you don't have to be a developer to attend a session like that, right? Because there's wonderful networking opportunities, and of course, we're all looking to develop and learn what these tools, this technology is available to us, how we can interface with things like what's on chain, with things like Gorilla Pool's API set, learning about broadcasting methods, learning about ways that like sCrypt, ways that we can build on top of the blockchain, and even if you yourself are not a developer, but you are an entrepreneur looking to maybe hire a team of developers, this is a great way to get personal one-on-one relationships with people, shake hands, say hello. It's the day before the conference, so it helps to have friendly faces that you get to know, you get to really meet that person. And then when you see, the conference is going to be insane. I'm telling you, there's going to be, tens of thousands of people going back and forth, back and forth. It's going to be hard to, your head's going to be spinning at the event. And then out of the corner of your eye, you see someone that you saw at the DevCon. You're like, hey, like, let's get lunch, please. Like, like I'm in a sea of people. I need some help. And those are the ways that you form those friendships, that you find that bond and connection with other people that are looking to innovate in the exact same way as you. And I think that those are the ways that we begin to take this to the next step, because we really need to work together. And although we are, oftentimes competing, as different businesses on the same network, a lot of times we bring each other a lot of value because, as they say, a rising tide lifts all ships.
Right on, Brett. So everybody, what I'll do is I'll pin a comment here on the bottom of this video, and you can then reply to the comment there, Brett, so everybody could find any of these necessary links, find your contact information, and any of the other references that you had. And I'll put a couple videos here at the end for people to watch other references, and then also the cards from the videos that we talked about. So last time I think there was a guy who was doing breakdancing or special breakdancing at one of Calvin's party at the last event that I went to. So is there any chance that guy's going to be there at this one at another party? So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you'll see me in full form. I love these events. I love like taking the opportunity to just get outside of my myself, and to be kind of my authentic self in the world, showing people that it's okay. You don't have to be worried about what other people are thinking about you. It's okay to be yourself. It's okay to be different. And yeah, it's my pleasure to lead the charge in that front. So you'll definitely catch me doing
nice.
some dancing at those events for sure.
All right, Brett. Well, thank you again. Okay. I appreciate you coming on. Let's do this again sometime. And I will look forward to seeing you on the 19th or around that. I'm going to be going to that first event on Monday. So I'm arriving early and I'll see you there and see you at the top.
All right. Yeah, and I was just about to ask you, where are you going to see me?
At the top, baby. I'll see you at the top. Oh, yeah. All right. Thanks, Brett. And I will go ahead and stop and